Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Premier Football Podcast here on PFP Media. As always, I'm your host, Rafe Garland, joined by my good friend Joe Doherty. Today on the show, we talk about the England selection for the upcoming internationals. We talk about the Champions League draw. We reflect on some teams going out of cups in the last week. The term Spursy may or may not be thrown around. I can't make any promises. We round up all the Premier League's action, and that's this week's Premier Football Podcast. Joe, how are you getting on today?
I'm good, Rafe. I have very sore feet, as you know, but perhaps our viewers don't. I'm running a marathon for Focus Ireland, which is Ireland's leading homeless charity next month. And I'd be a pretty good runner. I run about 50, 60K a week. But I've never run more than 30 kilometers. And I did another 30 kilometers yesterday. And just after 25 kilometers, you realize how much pounding your body has kind of taken. And my ankles were so sore at the end. I felt like they were going to fall off or something. It was absolutely rotten. So I'm really not looking forward to having to do 12 more kilometers than that in about 3 or 4 weeks' time.
No, that's very good. You're very brave. I wasn't expecting you to open the show with sore feet.
Man, that's all I'm thinking about right now.
Have you invested in any form of treatments and any ointments or foot baths or anything of the sort?
Yeah, there'll be a serious Epsom salts filled bath going down later. With there's a Radox do a relaxing bath. It's like a gel kind of thing that you put in, and it gets it all foamy. But it's very good for the musculoskeletal system as well. So I'll be having a bath later on today.
Okay, well,
highly recommended for anyone doing exercise.
Now that all of our male listeners have switched off, we can crack on with the football. Joe, I'm gonna leave it down to you. Where would you like to start? Would you like to start with the England team, the Champions League draw, and the cups, or the Premier League?
Yeah, England, I think, Rafe. And it's in the interest. I mean, there are some surprises, and then there are also some. You kind of. Maybe we see it differently because I support the England football team.
I do the opposite.
And I'm just shaking. Of course you don't. Yeah, no, and I do because my parents are English. And yeah, anyway. I'm just shaking my head. Why are 3 right backs always in the squad? He always picks Trippier. He always picks, most of the time picks Kyle Walker, and then he always picks a third one. That's just a waste. And then he's picked 6 midfielders. Why are you picking 3 right backs and 6 midfielders?
And he's picked 3 right backs.
The quality of
midfield.
Yeah, he has left the best one out. Yeah, and I mean there are other really good young, promising right backs as well that could feel very hard done by. And having not received an England call-up all season despite showing good form, and he just constantly reverts back to Kieran Trippier and Kyle Walker.
Yeah, he said that he's picked this one on form.
I'm so worried that I mean, there's a case in relation to people like Jesse Lingard. He's obviously, say what you like about him, he's in serious form. This is probably the best form he's ever shown in his career. He scored a great goal against Arsenal yesterday, and he's been banging them in for West Ham almost on a weekly basis. But I'm just so worried that he's going to go into the European Championships playing a back 4 or 5.
He loves the 5.
Trippier, Walker as a right-sided centre-back, Dyer, Maguire, and then Chilwell probably on the left ahead of Shaw, even though Shaw is in very good form. But I mean, the favoritism for some players, like Eric Dyer, just routinely getting picked in England squads despite having had a torrid season for Spurs. Harry Maguire, automatic starter for England despite
he had his best game for Leicester ever yesterday.
You should have opened with that. Yeah.
No, but I take your point.
I mean, that's obviously we'll get more into that game, but it's just he's such a timid manager. He has absolutely no character. He has absolutely no balls, man. He just doesn't. He doesn't have the cojones, as Troy Deeney would say, to make big calls, and he just picks the media darlings. Like he's made himself a media darling himself. I mean, I don't even think the World Cup in 2018 was that impressive. I mean, if you look at England's run to the semi-final, and look how they were taken apart by Belgium twice. the only decent team they came up against, and they lost to them in abject fashion twice.
I mean, they only scored a couple of goals from open play in that tournament, didn't they?
I think most England managers would have. There was a game against, I mean, man, they didn't really score that many goals. It was just the game against Panama where they scored 6. I think they only beat Tunisia 2-0 or 1-0, if I remember correctly. It went to penalties. Losing to the game against, yeah. No, I didn't think it was that. He bought himself so much time just by getting to a World Cup semi-finals. He's not a.
Yeah, apologies for any poor audio there. I think Joe's having some technical difficulties with the laptop, but we switched devices and we're back. Good to go. Are we, Joe?
Yeah. My proper laptop is in the shop and will be back to me in an undisclosed period of weeks, which was great news because of Brexit. So I'm really, really apologetic for that. But yeah, let's get back into it.
You were having a rant about Croatia.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't need to get too into that. I just don't think that, I was just saying that the tournament finishing 4th in the World Cup in 2018 bought Southgate time for it masked what was actually some pretty average performances. I think the best thing about that tournament was beating Colombia in the penalty shootout and getting over that hoodoo. But what do you think about England and where they stand now and the squad that he's picked now and kind of his selection policy over his reign as England manager?
Look, the glaring omission for me from a selection is Trent Alexander-Arnold, and he said that that's based on form, but I don't think that it is. I don't think he's ever really figured out how to incorporate Trent into his team because he's so set on playing this back 5, and he's playing this back 5 so that he can include Harry Maguire, and he's playing 3 centre halves so that someone can cover for Maguire's lack of pace. So he's fallen into the same trap that other England managers have done, and he's trying to wedge big name players into a team, and he's playing them out of position. You remember Scholes playing on the left wing for Eriksen.
Yeah.
Look, if Maguire isn't quick enough to play in a back 2, I don't think he's good enough to be playing for England in the first place. He's not good enough to be playing for Manchester United. He makes these mistakes week in, week out that seem to lead to goals. So I think that he said he's picked it on form, and he's gone for Reece James, who sometimes plays on the right of a back 5 for Chelsea. But I mean, Reece James is currently getting benched by a winger in Callum Hudson-Odoi for Chelsea. Eric Dyer was benched yesterday for Spurs behind teenager Joe Rodon. And
Eric Dyer has had a really, really, really bad season at centre back. He has not adapted very well to that position at all. This is it. He just picks these big name players who play.
Kyle Walker is second choice at City. Kieran Trippier has missed most of the season through suspension. He's played something like 5 games since Christmas. I'm not sure what form he's picking him on. But I think it's a tactical deficiency that he's never figured out how to play Trent, and now because some people in the media have been criticizing his performances before Christmas, and obviously Liverpool are down the table, it's a great opportunity for him to leave him out of the squad and then not have to worry about it. Yeah, go on.
No, I don't think Trent Alexander-Arnold has had a good season at all. It's been a big drop off in form in comparison to last season, and he's been one of the main culprits at Liverpool of falling away.
Defensively, he's been much better this year, though. His attacking product is down, but he still has barring Cancelo, he still has the best output for a fullback in the league. He's streets ahead of Reece James in terms of numbers, and ahead of Kyle Walker and stuff for chances created. Just because the forwards aren't putting them in the net, I don't think that Trent should necessarily be punished. But look, as a Liverpool fan, I'm happy that he's left out of the squad. It means that he's not going to get injured while he's away. It's one less thing to worry about. At the top end of the pitch for England, Joe, Ollie Watkins gets a call up ahead of Patrick Bamford.
I have a couple of things to say about the choice of forwards. I don't think that Ollie Watkins is deserving of an England call up.
Interesting.
He's got 10 goals in 27 in the Premier League. And most of those, the absolute majority, were in the first kind of 10, 12 games. I think he might have scored 8 in 11 or something, and now he's got. I mean, the last time we talked about Ollie Watkins, I was saying the same thing, and I don't think he's added to his goal tally since then, and that would have been about 2 months ago.
He definitely has. He definitely has.
I'm going to try to find his recent stats, but his last few games, like what his goals are over the last few weeks.
That's completely fair.
I don't think he's done enough to secure an England.
Well, he's in at the expense of Patrick Bamford, I suppose. Was the one that was tipped to get a call up instead. And Patrick Bamford obviously gets himself into brilliant positions for Leeds, but he does miss a whole lot of chances as well, and he is considerably older, and Watkins is considerably quicker.
No, Patrick Bamford is younger than Ollie Watkins. Ollie Watkins is 25.
Bamford's older than that, surely. Bamford's 27, 28, is he not?
No. He'd be about 23, 24. Sorry, no, he's 27. Jesus, he's 27. Yeah. Apologies. Man, that's mad that Patrick Bamford is 27. I thought he was much younger.
No, there's lots of talk of him, or there has been talk of him declaring for Ireland for years. I think he's waited for this England call up. But I suppose now if he's not getting in the team at this stage while he's in the form of his life, he might genuinely want to start thinking about it. Come here, I've got Ollie Watkins' stats here. Goals scored. Yeah, you're right, man. He's not scored in the Premier League since Arsenal at home. Is there a date for that? No, there's not. When did Leeds play Arsenal? No, not Leeds. Villa.
January?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games ago.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. And even before that, in between his goal against Arsenal and the one before that, there'd be a lot of games as well. Like, I don't think he's shown enough to be getting an England call up. There was a time when David Beckham had to wait. He broke through in 1995, and he didn't get an England call up until 1998. And he was winning league titles for Manchester United.
Well, I suppose there's nothing to say that he's going to start or even play for England. Maybe Gareth just wants to have a look at him. He bagged a load of goals in the Championship last year. He's come in. He's worked hard at Aston Villa. They don't create bags and bags and bags of chances. It's not like he's missing key opportunities every game the way Bamford is. And I know Bamford does.
Yeah, how on earth is Patrick Bamford 27? I can't believe that. I can't believe that. I mean, even if you look, I've just put up his Wikipedia here, and like he's basically had 3 full seasons, maybe 4 in his career. The amount of loans he's had and like not doing it, and only really kind of finding. I know he's been good for Leeds, but I think I can understand, and I don't think I've ever said or felt that he should be getting an England call up. I think he's been good for Leeds this year, but like at 27,
I don't even think he has been good for. Well, look, he has. You can look at his
been good for Leeds.
Look at his goal stats and say, yeah, look, he scored whatever it is. What 13, 14 goals in the league, but
14 and 27. But he's a good all-round striker, man. Like he brings others into play. I suppose.
But he misses so many chances. Leeds make so many chances.
Yeah, they do.
Do you have any other grievances?
Danny Ings has been injured until recently.
Yeah.
Do you think he could feel, or Tammy Abraham? I don't think Tammy Abraham has done nearly enough to be deserving of an England call up.
No, and if Southgate is saying that he's picking these teams on form, I don't think Abraham has played enough, and I suppose the same goes for Ings.
I suppose this is the thing. Even if Rashford is included in the squad and he's going to be playing out wide, Rashford would still, if it came down to it, Rashford would still be picked at centre forward ahead of Ollie Watkins.
Yeah. Jude Bellingham gets a call up, Joe.
He does, yeah. Obviously a very exciting talent. And this is another one doing very well at Borussia Dortmund. And how many times do we see young players go over and do very well at Borussia Dortmund? It's great. It's a great, I think the Bundesliga in general, man, it's a great breeding ground for talent.
I suppose that maybe the funniest story of international selections is Mikel Antonio declaring his declaring for Jamaica, and then failing to receive a call up to the national team.
Yeah, I haven't read. I saw that. I haven't read too much into it, so I don't know like why he was. But like he's in form as well,
and he's banging form.
Yeah, he's been playing very well for West Ham. He was very dangerous against Arsenal yesterday.
One of the lads who's a West Ham fan was saying that maybe he hasn't actually declared. Do you think that if he's eligible for England and if he wants to play for England, do you think that there's an argument that Southgate should be taking him ahead of Ollie Watkins?
And he's a much better player than Ollie Watkins.
I think he is
far more dangerous. He's a real handful.
I really wouldn't want to be marking him.
Neither would I. And he can play in multiple positions as well. Like he can play very well at centre forward, right wing, left wing, even at wing back. Like he could. Southgate loves to play with wing backs. He's someone who'd be able to do a job there. But again, he's not like a. Southgate loves a name. If do you know what I mean? And Mikel Antonio
Man, all England
30.
managers love a name.
Yeah, they do. And the FA love a name. Mikel Antonio is 30, and he's been around, for years.
That Craig Dawson has fallen victim to the same tax.
Well, you were saying that you think Dawson should be starting for England.
Man, he's been the best English midfielder in the Premier, the best English centre half in the Premier League this season. I know he scored 2 on goals in his last 2 games, which doesn't help the cause. But until that, I think he has been.
I think John Stones has. I think John Stones has been excellent this season.
He has been very good, but I think, as I've said numerous times on this show, I don't think Man City do a whole lot of defending. And I suppose England probably won't do a whole lot of defending for lots of the tournament until they reach the semi-final stages, quarter-final stages, depending on the draw. So if they are going to have a lot of the ball, John Stones is definitely someone you want in the team.
Yeah, he certainly is, because he helps to build out from the back. Yeah, I'm just looking at that squad and I still find it very uninspiring. I'm looking at the midfield options, and Jesse Lingard, Mason Mount, Declan Rice, Calvin Phillips, James Ward-Prowse, and Jude Bellingham. I mean, there's Phil Foden and Bukayo Saka, but they play higher up the pitch.
Sorry, did you say Declan Rice? Is he in the squad?
Declan Rice is in the squad, yeah. I suppose the midfield three would be Rice, Mount. Oh God,
because obviously James Maddison is missing, Jordan Henderson is missing.
Yeah. Rice, Mount, and Foden. Oh man, it's still a pretty patchy squad. I don't think that they'll do anything in the Euros, to be honest. Much better teams than England.
Yeah, well, look, we'll see. We could spend all day talking about this squad, but man, we do have other things on the agenda for today. The Champions League draw is absolutely massive. Somehow Chelsea managed to come out with Porto. Of course they do.
But Porto are a really tough fixture, man. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they're the worst team left, but and you'd expect Chelsea to win. But at the same time, they have history in this competition, and they're always very difficult to beat.
Liverpool have drawn them twice over the last 3 years in the quarterfinals. I think they have an aggregate of 9-0 against them over those games, possibly even higher. I think it could even be 11 or 13-0. They absolutely battered them on all 4 occasions.
Yeah. Would you see Chelsea going through quite easily in that one then?
No, I don't, because Chelsea don't do anything the easy way, man. I can see Chelsea playing boring sideways passes for over the 2 legs and hoping to nick a goal in the last couple of minutes.
That's what I was thinking. And Porto can be a difficult side to break down. You've obviously mentioned that Liverpool gave them a good thrashing a few times recently enough, but Chelsea don't play in the same style that Liverpool have played in over the past few years. On Liverpool, that's obviously it's one of the 2,
I'd argue that there are 3 big clashes, man.
Well, there's the PSG against Bayern Munich, a repeat of last year's final.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to see City take on Dortmund as well.
Yeah, that'll be a huge game, with Haaland playing against his future club.
Well, playing against his dad's club.
Playing against his dad's club, yeah. His childhood club, yeah.
Interestingly enough, the Liverpool clash against Real Madrid is scheduled for the 6th of April, 2 days after Liverpool play Arsenal. So I suppose my question to you is what score do you think that the Arsenal team will beat Liverpool's under 12s?
I'd say Liverpool's under 12s will beat Arsenal. I don't know. It'll probably be a draw. It'll probably no. If it's the same situation as when Liverpool played Aston Villa last season, and forgive me, was that in the FA Cup or the League Cup? Because
that was in the League Cup. I don't think it'll be quite the same squad, because obviously the entire first team were on the other side of the planet. I reckon it'll be similar to the Fulham game prior to the Red Bull game, where it was very much a second string squad. You'll see the likes of James Milner and Costas and Ox and players like this probably playing from the start, rather than Fabinho and Robertson and the likes. Yeah,
I agree. I doubt there'll be too many. Actually, man, I'm going to say I don't think there'll be any first 11 players playing in that game. I just don't. You just can't really risk it, can you?
No, I don't think so.
Stakes this high in the Champions League.
I don't think so. Obviously, Arsenal did Liverpool a favour yesterday by taking points off West Ham. Liverpool are now 5 points off fourth place. So, I mean, a win against Arsenal will be absolutely massive in the race for fourth. But I think that they are putting all of their eggs into this basket.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, Arsenal putting all their eggs into the Europa League basket again by not beating West Ham. Like, did you see the second goal in that match by any chance?
Talk me through it.
Okay, so West Ham are awarded a free kick pretty much on the edge of the Arsenal area. And 3 or 4 of Arsenal's players just start walking with their backs to goal towards the goal. And West Ham take a quick free kick, and Arsenal's players are still walking towards the goal, not looking around. And Jared Bowen is bearing down on goal from the right-hand side, and he just smacks it at Leno, and he lets it go through his legs. It was the most inept display of defending and goalkeeping that I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of inept defending and goalkeeping from Arsenal over the past 10 years. This, you have to watch it if you haven't. It's unbelievably bad.
Does this game almost epitomise Arsenal's season, going 3-0 down in desperate form and then somehow managing to claw their way back into contention or salvaging a draw? Not salvaging a win, but salvaging a draw.
Yeah, and maybe, feeling like they should have won in the end. Yeah, this is. I mean, but you can't be. And I mean, great character there are a few players who stood out. Callum Chambers was great at right back. Odegaard continued his fine form, and Lacazette had arguably his best game in an Arsenal shirt. But you can't be trying to salvage a game after going 3-0 down in the first half hour.
Lacazette, I think that he has the third highest goals per 90 minutes in the league this season, behind only Kane and Iheanacho.
Yeah. He's been reasonably productive this season, but it's probably going to be his last season, because Arsenal put all of their eggs in one basket with Aubameyang's contract, and because Lacazette had a poor season last season, but now Aubameyang's having a very poor season this season, and Lacazette is going to have to be the sacrificial lamb, I would imagine.
Martin Odegaard looks like a very handy footballer, but there's no option to buy at the end of this loan deal. Do you think that Arsenal are going to have a void to fill there next season, or are they hoping that the likes of Emile Smith-Rowe can kind of step into that role?
I think that they're going to get him. I think that he's going to be a priority, and from what I've read from from journalists who know Arsenal very well, is that Odegaard himself is pushing for his deal to be made permanent. So whether that can be made permanent this summer, or whether, because Real Madrid need the money. And
yeah, but there might be competition for his signing, though.
There could be, but there could be, and if a Champions League playing club comes in, maybe he'll have his head swayed. But from what I've read, he's extremely happy and feels very settled at Arsenal.
He's a boyhood Liverpool fan. Do you know that?
I didn't know that. No. Would you take him? He's a complete departure from the. He's a complete departure from the type of football that you've been playing.
Yeah,
but he works very hard. He's not like an Ozil who doesn't put in a shift.
No, of course I'd take him. And obviously it's come out this week that Gini Wijnaldum does look to be moving on. And if it was a case that Liverpool were to ship 1 or 2 more of their midfielders, maybe Milner or Ox or somebody like that, and they were to free up some space in the wage budget, then definitely. He actually trained with the club in 2014 as a teenager. When in the off season in Norway, he did a tour of some of the biggest clubs. He trained with with Bayern. He trained with Liverpool. He trained in Italy. So there's pictures of him training with Gerrard and stuff when he was a teenager. And he's look, I'd love to see it, because obviously he's an incredibly talented footballer. And if Arsenal do go out and get him over the summer, I think that'd be a huge coup for them. Yeah,
I agree. But I wonder if it might be a loan with an obligation to buy if they do get him, just financially. But
speaking of potential moves over the summer, Joe, is it time that Harry Kane left Spurs?
Yes, 100%. He is far too... Man, if you take Harry Kane out of Spurs, and I'll throw Son in there as well, they would be finishing 15th, 14th, 15th.
I'm not going to argue with you.
They're abject. Those two players are quality, especially Kane. Kane is he had a bad game when they played Arsenal, but he had two. I've never seen. I don't think I've ever. Maybe going back to Alan Shearer, strike a ball so well as a number 9. His technique is flawless. Left foot, right foot, head. He's just a goal scoring machine. He's the best striker that we've had in the league for. I'll go back to Thierry Henry probably.
Spurs went out of the Europa League, obviously in traditional Spurs style on Thursday. Do you want to be the one to say it?
Well, it's happened again, hasn't it?
What's happened again, Joe?
The Spursiness has taken hold. But you know what? I wasn't surprised.
No, and I don't think the players were necessarily surprised afterwards. No. When you hear the captain come out afterwards, Lloris, and criticize the team for their attitude in the way that he has, and you hear how the manager speaks after, I don't think anybody was surprised, man.
But Lloris wasn't just criticizing the team; he was criticizing the club. He was saying this is an endemic problem within the club, and it's hard to argue against that. I mean, it is. Spurs obviously have made something of themselves by pushing into the Champions League places recently, but that stopped last season. They're not going to get Champions League football this season.
Well, they're ahead of Liverpool now in the Premier League. They bounced back yesterday. They're 3 points off fourth at this stage.
I think Chelsea and Leicester are probably going to get there.
Well, look, I don't think it's necessarily out of their hands. They did bounce back yesterday with a win, in fairness. Look, they did have a considerable stroke of luck. They were gifted the first goal, a poor pass from Martinez, I think, picked out Kane in midfield or Mora in midfield, and 2 or 3 passes later, the ball was in the back of the net. It was good. Yeah. Good attacking football from Spurs, but I don't think that's been the issue for them this season. It's not been scoring goals. It's been keeping clean sheets at the other end. On that game yesterday, Joe, there were a couple of instances where Harry Kane seemed to go down. Maybe I should say especially easily. Obviously, one was for the penalty. I'd love to get your reaction on that.
Well, what did Gary Neville say in commentary? He said
it was cute.
It was very cute. It's cute from Kane.
Very clever to buy the foul.
Yeah. What would he have said if that was Mohamed Salah? What would he have said if that
I could imagine the term disgraceful being battered around, going down easily, minimal contact.
What would he have said if it was Raheem Sterling? What would he have said if it was Raheem Sterling?
He might have said it was clever.
Do you think he would have said it was clever?
Well, I think the Sterling's image has changed a little bit over the last couple of years. I think he would have got away with it because he's English. I think Jesse Lingard gets a penalty. I think Rashford gets a penalty. I think Grealish gets a penalty. I think Nicolas Pepe does not get a penalty. Sadio Mane does not get a penalty. Yeah.
These guys get yellow cards. Could I just tell you something? All of the pundits who are saying that this is a clear penalty are the same ones who are saying that Lacazette's penalty in the North London derby was generous. One Lacazette got clattered. And in this instance, Kane wasn't touched at all.
Interestingly, Joe, yesterday, there in Arsenal's game, there was a through ball played through. I'm not sure by who, to Lacazette. That bouncing a lofted through ball. He took it on the volley and he lobbed it over the goalkeeper. And after he lobbed it over the goalkeeper, he was clattered by the keeper and taken out. And we saw last week that he was awarded a penalty for being clattered on his follow through, and we saw Liverpool concede a similar penalty against Burnley. When I think it was Chris Wood knocked the ball over Alisson out for what would have been a goal kick, and Alisson followed through and took him out there. Where is the consistency on these decisions? This is the thing. This is a major ongoing issue with the standard of refereeing in the Premier League, is that one week you'll have one decision go one way, and the next week there'll be an identical situation and it'll be awarded the other way. And they might even have VAR in both, and the VAR is inconsistent too. I mean, we obviously, you would watch a good bit of rugby. You would at least watch the Six Nations. Something controversial in the rugby at the moment is the number of red cards being given out. It's a new thing in rugby, and pretty much any form of shoulder contact to the head is being given as a red card. And a lot of people are getting upset that it's ruining the game, or it's not what we're used to be seeing, or how our players supposed to. But it's completely consistent. Almost every single game, you're guaranteed to have a red card at the moment because of this law. But it's being enforced across the board in a consistent manner. And I suppose that's just what we're not seeing in the Premier League. We're seeing some ridiculous decisions, and people are like, how is that a penalty? That doesn't make any sense. But if it was a penalty every single week, people would get used to it,
Do you know what we need? You
What do
remember
we
when
need, Joe?
Bielsa had, there was the Spygate incident, and he gave his press conference and he delivered a PowerPoint presentation, kind of demonstrating his approach.
Rationale. Yeah.
Yeah. We need the FA and what's the refereeing body called?
The PGMOL.
Yeah, PGMOL, to deliver a similar presentation. Every football fan, every Premier League watching football fan should be obliged to tune into this, and they should explain exactly what the rules are, because no one has a clue. Even the referees, I think, are confused, and the coaching staff are confused. Everyone, they basically need to give a detailed PowerPoint presentation showing exactly what the rules are going to be going forward and being consistent with them. I mean, we had a handball law change 10 days ago, mid-season.
We've had 3 or 4.
What sort of nonsense is that?
Yeah.
I mean, you've just mentioned the rugby, that it's a difficult situation to deal with, the increase in red cards, but at least they're being consistent and everyone knows about it.
I think that miking up referees in the Premier League is an absolute must. We've seen it done
100%.
in other leagues around the world, and people, like, there's such lazy excuses about it, man. You know, oh, people would pick up swearing on the mics. You know, well, I suppose the first thing the players have to stop swearing at referees. You know, if if that's the biggest issue, you know, oh well, you know, players are going to get heard swearing at referees. I mean, surely that's a bigger issue in itself, that players are verbally abusing referees at any given point. And it's not like footballers swear more than players in other sports. Like cricketers swear, but they're mic'd up. NFL players swear, they're mic'd up. Rugby players swear in the general. There's a level of respect shown towards officials in every other sport that I think
100%
has to get behind.
What mad idea here. What if we make it an automatic red card for swearing at the ref? Or in rugby, you're not even allowed to talk. At least the yellow. In rugby, you're not even allowed to talk to the ref unless you're the captain. Yeah. You can't approach him.
How about it's not even a red card? How about the FA will just cite you after the game and give you a 1-game ban?
Exactly. Yeah.
If you're picked up swearing on the mic, you get a 1-game ban.
Swearing at the ref in the direction of the ref.
Yeah. Or you're fined the equivalent of your match fee or whatever it is. You know, some sort of retrospective action. Just. I mean, it would stop it so quickly.
I completely agree. I mean, we have. Tennis is very quiet, and it's a very enclosed environment, so you can hear the chat going on the chat going on there. Cricket, they have stump mics built into the stumps, so you
players
can hear
are often
going.
mic'd up themselves, and they do interviews as they're playing.
In T20 anyway. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right, look, the last thing I want to talk to you about today, Joe, was Manchester United, where we talk about it happening again, but it hasn't happened again because Solskjaer is one step ahead of the game this time. He cannot lose a semi-final with Manchester United if they don't get to the semi-final.
That's logic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I saw that Ole Out was trending, and I can understand it. I mean, there are a lot of people saying they can't understand it, but
Joe, since 2016, Manchester United have the second highest net spend globally, only behind Manchester City. £40 million behind Manchester City. It's like £440 million worth of net spend since 2016. It's nearly £100 million a year of net spend.
They spend a ton of money, man. And Manchester United's end goal is not to compete for top 4 and get knocked out in quarterfinals of cup competitions or get knocked out in the group stages of the Champions League. Manchester United's goal is to be at the very least competing for every single trophy that they're in and winning probably one a season. That's the standard that they've set for themselves.
I think they do have a good shot in the Europa League. They've obviously got a good draw.
But man, they've not got to the semi-finals yet.
Speaking of the Europa League, actually, the last thing before we finish that I do want to touch on, Arsenal have obviously drawn Slavia Prague, obviously a team in the spotlight at the moment, and it seems that the world is almost uniting behind Arsenal in this game. It's being dubbed as Arsenal versus racism, obviously after the shocking scenes against Rangers and Kamara last week. Obviously I've seen that. And Slavia Prague fans, they put out some social media, a really, really disgraceful social media post directed at Glenn Kamara as well. And then I think the club have officially accused Kamara of lying, you know.
Yeah, but they also released a video, an anti-racism video, which was just so distasteful. I mean, it was so hypocritical beyond belief. But this is another reason, man, why there should be mics on the football pitch, around the football pitch, is that you pick up things like this.
Yeah, well, look, I think even in the empty stadium, if he was to shout it, it would have been heard. But even if the referee is wearing mics, if someone walks over and whispers in your ear like this, it's not going to get picked up. But I think that everybody knows what happened. I mean, even if UEFA can't enforce a ban on this player because there's no proof or whatever, I think that the club, there is no onus on the club to ban him for the rest of the season or something.
100%. Or to sack him.
Yeah, terminate his contract.
Yeah. I think that they're going beyond that. That there's and I'm not just saying that because Arsenal would give Arsenal to buy into this Europa League semi-finals, but I think we've talked about this before in relation to international football. The racism the Bulgarian fans were directing at the England players in 2019. There has to be a zero tolerance policy with racism, and clubs and teams need to be kicked out of competitions or deducted points, maybe if it's a group competition, kicked out if it's the knockout competition, if their fans or their players are committing racist abuse. It's the only way that will actually have a serious effect.
Yeah, of course.
To not pay them their fees for competing in the competition.
I think the only difference this time is that there is no audible proof. There's no recording of it, of exactly what was. Everybody knows what was said, and that's why I think that the onus should be on the club themselves to take action. Otherwise, by not coming out against it, they're essentially condoning it. It's either acceptable or it's not acceptable, and if they're accepting it, then they're saying it's acceptable.
Yeah, I completely agree there. But I mean, you don't get that sort of reaction from the opposition unless it's racist abuse.
No, and I think that you can even see some of the Slavia players heard what was said as well. There are a couple of black Slavia players that were staring down their own teammates, giving them absolute daggers because they were horrified at what happened. It wasn't just the Rangers players that were up in arms about it. I think there was lots of people very offended on the pitch at the time, and I don't know how these players are supposed to play together now.
Yeah, of course. It's man, this is the last thing that we want to be having to talk about on a football podcast, but it's something that we have to talk about, and this is the last thing that should be. This is a sport, and you're having players being racially abused, not only by fans, and that's not any way more acceptable. It's across the board completely unacceptable, but opposition players.
Yeah, we saw some nice scenes in the Old Firm derby. Scott Brown obviously went over and gave Kamara a hug and exchanged pleasantries and stuff like that. Now Celtic weren't kind enough to give champions Rangers a guard of honour at the start of the game. They weren't they weren't that what's the word I'm looking for, Joe? Courteous, yeah, or yeah.
No, but man, you couldn't do that.
Why?
I just think that the rivalry goes. I just think they don't have that level of respect.
Man, I think that there has to be an element of losing graciously in sports. I think it's absolute tradition around the world that you give champions elect a guard of honor, especially considering what Rangers have done in the league this year, that they've gone unbeaten, that they've ended such a prolonged period of dominance from Celtic, and I think that's just pure saltiness.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I just mean I can understand why Celtic didn't give them a guard of honor, and I would have been surprised if they did. But yeah, you're right. It is the dumb thing. Arsenal gave Manchester United and Robin van Persie a guard of honor.
Yeah, Liverpool gave Manchester City and Raheem Sterling a guard of honor. City gave Liverpool a guard of honor, even though Bernardo Silva didn't clap them. Hasn't been forgotten.
Yeah.
How salty is that, man? Standing in a guard of honor with your arms crossed, making a point of not clapping for the opposition team.
It's very salty. Is very immature, isn't it?
It is. Right. Well, look, Joe, I've really enjoyed the show today. I know that you've got stuff to do. I've got stuff to do. We will be back next week, presumably to talk about some international football.
We will. And do you know what, man? I was thinking this. I really enjoyed the last international podcast that we did because we didn't purely focus on international football. You know, there are some interesting stories going on, and and this is something that I enjoyed about today is that we talked more about.
We touched on the political side of things.
Yeah, we did, and there are ongoing discussions behind the scenes to be moving into another. to be focusing, to be producing another podcast when the time is right. Maybe not as consistent with weekly uploads, but maybe bi-weekly or monthly. We'll be putting out a current affairs on topical news featured globally. Or
I am more interested, Joe, in doing our true crime podcast, which will happen within the next month. I'm saying it now. It will happen hopefully the end of this month. If not, it'll be the start of next month. So in about 2 weeks, look forward to the True Crime podcast brought to you by PFP Media. Joe's tasked with finding a fantastic, a really interesting story full of gruesome details and mystery and murder. And when he finds it, we will bring you the True Crime podcast here on PFP Media. Hopefully we'll get some guests on to discuss international football. Next week, we might get a guest on to talk true crime with us as well. This has been the Premier Football Podcast on PFP Media. Thank you, Joe, for joining me today.
Pleasure, Rafe. Don't forget to subscribe, everyone, if you're still there. And like the show, share the content around, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.